Supervisors. We will begin today's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. We will be led today by Supervisor Crocker. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Well, we are kicking off Pink Tuesday with item number 1 on our agenda, and that's Board of Supervisors matters. And we will begin today with the pinkest of us all, and that's Supervisor Shucklian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. Last Friday, I attended Family Services of Tulare County's Purple Party, and as we know, we can't meet in person, so they did a virtual online event, and it was actually very, very successful. From what I've heard, they grossed more than they had in the past with any in-person party, so I'm very happy to hear that. Last Wednesday, we had our Tulare County Economic Development Corporation meeting, and yesterday it was announced that our long-term, I think 20-year plus EDC Director Paul Saldana will be retiring at the end of this month, so the search starts for a new director. Also on Thursday, I attended again virtually a Fresno State Recreation 179 class, so that was very interesting to go back in time just a bit. And today I have a mental health board meeting, and Thursday an Animal Services Advisory Committee meeting, and on Friday I will be joining the Visalia Leadership Visalia group, doing a Zoom talking about government and governance, and then I will also be part of a group talking with some COS folks. And then next Tuesday, I have a jury summons. So it's luckily we'll be meeting in the evening next Tuesday, because actually this is the day that I'm supposed to call in. So Monday night, maybe I will, maybe I won't, but if I do, that's fine with me.
What, call in or?
Well, I have to call in Monday night to see if
You said maybe you will, maybe you won't.
No, maybe I will have to serve, maybe I won't have to serve.
Okay.
And if I do, I absolutely have no problem with that. I'd love to serve on a jury, especially if you were on the stand. But and lastly, as you know, we are wearing pink. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and let's just remember that it's more than just wearing pink. It's encouraging women to go out there and get your breast exams. It's very important. As I've said in the past, my spouse put it off for a bit, went in and did have breast cancer, but things went very well in her case, but unfortunately sometimes that doesn't happen. So again, I encourage women and men, because men can get breast cancer also. And that's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. On the first, I came over at a short notice because at the EOC, they decided to, or the incident management team of the fire decided to go forward with the repopulation of the Ponderosa, Camp Nelson, Coy Flat, Pierpoint Springs. And so I was asked to come over and to help with a Facebook Live announcement of that, and really thankful for everybody that was involved, the fire department, our sheriff's office, RMA, HHSA, all involved with that, and the people in the mountain communities that were able to go back up and go to their homes and cabins are very thankful for that. And Chief Norman and the rest of that group have been doing a wonderful job of keeping everybody informed and just doing the best they can to clean up the fire and to get people repopulated. And so I was happy to take part of that. And that same day we had, earlier that day, actually, our East Tule Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting and talked more. We had a lengthy discussion about the rules and regulations, which we've been doing for the past several meetings now as it goes through. And so we've passed those rules and regulations, and sort of the topic of discussion this time was the water fee study and adopting that, even though there'll be some changes down the road, that got adopted. So obviously that's everyone's very concerned about that, and should be. It's a tough subject, but thankfully everybody on the board has really looked at it from lots of different angles and tried to come up with the fairest possible thing that we can do to comply with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act that California has passed. And on the second, had the pleasure of going down, and also Supervisor Valero met us over there at the Porterville Fairgrounds, which is the incident management station, and we met with what was called Team Conifer, and that was an acronym which I don't know what it stands for, but it has to do with, it was a group from Mexico that they're sort of like the Forest Service for the United States, and we had 100 come up to help with the fires here with the SQF complex fire. So it was really nice to just have a little photo op, and Supervisor Valero was able to express to them in Spanish what we were all, the thanks that we all wanted to give them. And then they were called the Serpientes Amarillos, so I think that means the yellow dragons. And they had some pretty cool gear. I was telling Chief Norman that they needed to have some extra hats to trade with those guys, but I don't know if that happened. So I think they had some cool hats. But anyway, we just thanked them for what they were doing, and got to visit a little bit with their sort of their operations manager, and just had a good time telling them that we thank them, and he kind of returned that too. It was really interesting. He said they were really thankful to be able to come over to the United States and to kind of see a different type of fire management and to have that experience given to them. So it was a good situation for everyone. And later that day, went out to Poplar to the Larry Itliong Center, and just assisted a little bit with a food distribution there, and I happened to run into some census people while we're out there, so we discussed that, and they were working sort of in the Springville area later that day, so we kind of talked about the fire and how they may be able to get numbers to help with the census. And on the 5th, we had our TRI, JPA, and Success Reservoir Enlargement Project meeting via Zoom in that case. And I just talked a lot about how the Success Reservoir Enlargement Project is going, looked at a little bit of time-lapse photography of how that's moving and how the road's being built back there. Earlier, I had a chance to make a video with the Army Corps of Engineers talking about the benefit that's going to be by increasing the water storage behind that, behind the R.L. Schaefer Dam by about 25%. So it's going to be a great thing for the county. And so we talked a little bit about that in this meeting. And then also a little later that day, stopped by Station 20 over in Porterville just to wish Hank Seguin the best in his retirement, with retiring from the county after I think it was about 11 or 12 years, somewhere in there, but many years before that, volunteering and working in the fire services. So a nice time there, and that's what I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Valero.
All right, good morning, Tulare County. Last Wednesday, I participated in the Tulare County Community Cares Coalition event in Orosi, and the outcome included 150 food boxes, non-perishable, 66 additional resource bags after the food boxes were gone, 150 backpacks, 150 food boxes and bags, perishable items, 2 pallets of water, and 33 test collections done. I just want to thank every person and organization that continues to make these opportunities available throughout Tulare County. We truly appreciate it and know the residents of this great county are very thankful as well. Last Friday, I had the opportunity, as mentioned by Supervisor Townsend, to travel south to Porterville, where Supervisor Townsend and I thanked the firefighters from Mexico, as mentioned. Our firefighters from all over the country build bridges and continue to work together to battle the ravage that has impacted our county. On Friday, I also got to meet with Michael Navarro from Caltrans Area 6 to discuss important projects in the area. On Saturday, I traveled to Woodlake to participate in the Woodlake Botanical Gardens cleanup with the Kiwanis Club of Woodlake. I spent a few hours wheel-bearing mulch and grazing it across an area of the garden. We must have had at least about 20 plus volunteers, youth, as well as members of the Kiwanis Club. And then yesterday, I met with a coalition of organizations via Zoom that included the American Cancer Society, the California Health Collaborative, Equality California, Youth Leadership Institute, the Tulare County Office of Education, and then the Tulare County Tobacco Free Coalition. I enjoyed this meeting as they helped inform me on the work being done to promote a tobacco-free and smoke-free valley, especially as it pertains to our youth and the magnitude of vaping and storefront advertisements impacting the next generation. Each organizational representative shared qualitative and quantitative information, in addition to increasing my knowledge about community health advocacy and what's taking place on the front lines for this effort. So kudos to a great presentation for all those involved. And that is all I have, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Wednesday, I had a meeting on the RCRC executive search committee. Spoke with the recruiter for some length about what we were looking for and just giving some parameters. They're going around to the executive committee doing that. Last Thursday, I spoke at the Strathmore Town and Country Club, giving them general updates on what's going on, latest and greatest, fire stuff, and statewide propositions, among other things. Last Friday, the San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority met. We approved our annual budget. We also got an update on the San Joaquin Valley Water Blueprint. That was something that I think the Water Commission has already heard and seen. So I don't know that there was a whole lot new. Their primary focus is on conveyance capacity, increasing that as a region versus just within subbasins, providing more canals, as well as fish-friendly diversions is also a big focus of theirs. So being able to get water out of the Delta in a fashion that minimizes the impact to any fish species, so getting more water here. Upcoming this Friday, I have a meeting that I'll be attending for the Golden State Natural Resources, which is an arm of RCRC. They've been going over some of their business plans and where they're going in the direction as far as forest health. So that should be interesting to hear and see what they've been working on. And then the only other thing I want to report on, and just some kudos I want to give out to is one, Denise England, our Water Resources Director, and also for Southern California Edison. With the creek fire up in Fresno and Madera County, there were a lot less water deliveries happening through the Big Creek projects, and so less water was getting down to Millerton, and it was at a critical stage late last week, so much so that we might have reached Deadpool in Millerton by Sunday, this past Sunday. And I was able to make some phone calls, also Assemblyman Mathis, appreciation for him, and Congressman Nunes, as they stepped in, they reached out to their respective contacts with Southern Cal Edison to make sure that Edison opened their valves more so that we had additional water come down the hill. And what would have happened is that we would have had immediate stop deliveries. Bryant-Kern Canal would have been dry, and that not only would that have been a huge impact for our irrigation districts, but for our communities that are relying upon their water. And the reason it was at that point is because the whole Big Creek project was devastated. Big Creek itself, the town was decimated, Shaver Lake, there was fire all around Shaver Lake and Huntington, and good portions of those communities were destroyed. And that's all part of the San Joaquin River watershed. And so that, even though it's in another county, it had direct impact for us. So much so that, 50% of the Friant Kern's water comes to Tulare County and helps feed our farms and our communities. So again, just appreciate everyone coming together, recognizing that there were unsafe conditions still, and that Edison figured out a way to keep their employees safe and turn the valves and release more water so that we didn't have an emergency situation here. So appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, a few things that I wanted to go over today. Obviously, today is Pink Tuesday. I want to thank all county employees and residents who are wearing pink today to help celebrate and spread breast cancer awareness throughout the community. I think it's a very important cause, and I do appreciate all the various efforts that are undertaken in our communities to not only spread breast cancer awareness, but general cancer awareness throughout Tulare County. There's numerous Relay for Life events that have either been postponed or canceled this year that we're aiming at the same goal, and hopefully those will all be able to pick up steam and keep on going as soon as it's safe to do so. Also, another reason to celebrate today, my youngest turned 3. Can't believe that. Little James is 3 years old now, so big birthday morning for him already. Couple public meetings I wanted to highlight for this week. Tomorrow at 10, First Five will be having its commission meeting right here in the board chambers. I'm sorry, via Zoom. I will be in the board office for the Zoom meeting. I'm so used to them being here. LAFCO will be meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock right here in these chambers. That's also available via Zoom as well. The audit committee meeting will take place this Thursday, October 8th at 10 a.m. Right here in these chambers. On Monday, the 12th of October at 1 o'clock, the Greater Cahuilla Groundwater Sustainability Agency will be having its meeting at the Cahuilla Delta Water Conservation Office in Farmersville. And then the Tulare County Water Commission will be having its meeting here in conference rooms A and B at 3 o'clock. Those are the items I wanted to highlight during Board of Supervisors matters for today. We will now move on our agenda, take up item 2, which is a request from the Health and Human Services Agency to receive an update on COVID-19 status and response efforts in Tulare County. We'll look over to Director Lutz.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, CEO and council. Sadly, forgetting my pink today, and rest assured I'm wearing pink in spirit.
Okay, good.
Starting off today, our cases this morning, 16,607, and that's up 403 cases from the last report. We saw 2 additional deaths over the last week, currently at 265, and our recoveries at 15,736. Our weekly cases for the week ending October 5th, unfortunately, are showing a 9.1% increase from the prior week. And I will acknowledge and say that's a definite setback on our getting to the red tier. It's not clear at this point whether this is a new upward trend, a plateau, or temporary tick up. Overall, it does continue to remind us not to underestimate COVID-19, remaining diligent in hand hygiene, mask wearing, and of course, limiting our get-togethers with people outside of our immediate households. And I apologize, I wanted to bring up, I have a few slides that I wanted to cover today. First being, that's our, the weekly case increases that I just covered. Oop. I'll try it again, see if it, there we go. So that's the graph that I know you've seen before that we continue to update week to week. You can see really over the last month, we've kind of stayed within that tighter range of that 450 to 380 type of range. Really do want to continue to see it go down. We continue to hover around where that June level was. In terms of our daily case rate, that also did reverse itself, went from 8.8 per 100,000 back up to 11.3 per 100,000. The state's calculation based on their data has us at 11.5 per 100,000. Our testing volume fortunately did show improvement, and we were above the state's average last week. So it was adjusted by a factor of 0.936 or 6.4%. So the state has our adjusted case rate right now at 10.7 per 100,000.
So real quick, so when we are better than the state's average, they artificially decrease our rates, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so it does work both ways. There's a cap or a limit on how much they'll adjust upward or downward, but it will at least benefit us the other way if we can get our testing volume up. Hence why our strategy is definitely pushing as much testing as we can.
Thank you.
And then our non-lagged or preliminary case rate showing at 9.6 right now. Last week, it went up a little bit from where it was at the board, so I would expect, certainly we're going to see it move. Hopefully, we'll get more negative tests coming in as opposed to positive, but again, at this point, we know we're at 9.6, still higher than we want to be. When we look at our testing positivity for the week ending September 26th, we're at 6.2%. Again, kind of staying within that 6% range. Fortunately, that hasn't gone up, but it's still precariously close to that 8% threshold that we want to make sure we're well under. Our non-lagged positivity at this point is at 5.5%, but again, that will change as more results come in. And then our effective did make a jump also to 0.96, reflective of a higher degree of disease spread in the county. We're still a fraction below the state's are effective, but certainly going in the opposite direction where we want to see it. Of course.
Quick tests count in our numbers when they do those?
Some do, some don't, and actually that's a question that we think in the coming weeks is going to be resolved, where the antigen-based tests right now are not counting, and that's a problem for us, particularly because that's where we have the most supplies on hand, particularly with Quia Delta. However, there are some changes coming at the state level for some of the rapid tests, and it appears that we're kind of on the cusp of them allowing the credit for those antigen-based tests. And I'll talk a little bit about that too when I get onto our testing strategy, because it definitely is a very an important piece for us that we're wanting to advocate for, and even engage with data adjudication with the state on arguing that we feel these tests should be included, because the rapid response is really crucial to overcome a lot of barriers for some of our difficult to serve populations.
Thank you.
And then hospitalizations also did tick back up 5.8%, again, kind of staying within this range over the last month, around that 35 to 40 range for hospitalizations. So one thing that I wanted to talk a bit about was the equity metric. I know last week we had a pretty lengthy discussion on that piece. What I'm putting up here right now are the 19 census tracts that are identified as being within the lowest quarter within the county. You can also see where our percent positivity is for each of those locations, and at this point is based on the 2010 census, but the population of those particular areas. Seen a little differently, this map kind of gives you an overview of where each of those pockets are, and also helps us in where we're driving some of our testing. And obviously, based on the equity metric, these are communities that we most definitely are targeting for enhanced testing. But I think an important area to point out too is these are our census tracts with above 8% positivity across the entire county. And obviously, those are the communities, broadly speaking, that we want to be looking at. And I think it's pretty telling when you look at it on the map, and we can kind of see that belt running through the county from Porterville up through Dinuba, where we have the darker blue being the higher positivity areas. So when we're looking at our mobile testing, we're looking at both that lowest quartile, but we're also looking at where are we seeing the highest levels of positivity and working to target our testing strategies in those communities. The positive thing for us last week is that as the new data was released, we ended up at least being in compliance with the health equity metric at this point. Last week, county overall testing positivity was 6%, and our lowest quartile testing positivity was 6.3%. This week, we did see that gap increase a bit, and likely a factor of we're testing more there, so we're finding more positives. So that goes back to we're not quite entirely clear what we're going to see yet, and other than knowing we expect that there's higher positivity. So our gap right now, Tulare County overall 6.2%, and our lowest quartile at 7.2%. Again, in order for us to be able to move to the red tier, we need to make sure it's below that 8% threshold. So that's where we stand on the equity metric. Again, at this point, our focus on testing is going to be these communities where we have the highest positivity, and continuing to provide as much testing as we can, and I'll go into that in a second on some of our strategies, but I at least wanted to provide an overview of where the Healthy Places Index and the equity metric fall into place. I mentioned the vaccine last week as well, and some of the challenges with the cold storage requirements. We actually received a request from the state asking if we have interest in housing a super freezer. So we indicated that yes, we absolutely would be interested in housing that. We're waiting for some of the final details of what the footprint's going to be, ideal locations. We don't have dates yet on that asset, but we definitely are pursuing it as we feel it would be a huge advantage for us. And then for testing, so we did have our Verily site last Friday in Woodlake. I'm still seeing low volume at those, and again, going back to the comment Supervisor Valero made last week about trying to pull apart some of our overall relief efforts and our testing. So we're starting to do more of that strategy, and I think the directions we're looking at is going to be more focused on testing being the central piece for a number of these events. We did get some National Guard resources to do 4 additional dates and expanded testing for us in various communities. Last week, we moved our Tulare OptumServe site from the Ag Center to the fairgrounds. Yesterday, there was a line waiting to get in, so we're hoping that that's a positive sign about utilization increasing there, and we're continuing to look at the utilization at the other sites and deciding if we need to make some adjustments there. And then going, Supervisor, to your comment about rapid testing, recognizing some of those needs and challenges of how do we get results now? Tests that we know will qualify right now, we are, so that would be like the Abbott ID Now tests. Those we are working with Quia Delta to do partnerships and do testing at Neighborhood Church, and then we're also looking at Houston Elementary. Again, trying to look at a little more of a grassroots style effort of popping up the testing events, being able to get them the results then and there, which provides that level of hopefully assurance and also interest of people coming. And then we also are connecting with other partners to expand our testing events. And one of the areas that we're really starting to look at is some of our schools and school partners for a weekend collection events, and really kind of promoting the idea of, getting tested is one of the key steps to being able to bring kids back to school more broadly. And we feel that that might be a good partnership with some of our schools, particularly in our communities that we're really targeting. I would add too on the state is, they let us know, and this enters into your question also about rapid tests and this antigen testing. So they're going to be sending counties an Abbott's new antigen-based test. It's called Binax Now. Not to be confused with Abbott ID Now. And the difference being Binax Now is an antigen-based test, ID Now is a nucleic acid test. It's a little easier in terms of, working with the samples on the Binax Now. The state has indicated they've procured a large number of these from the Federal Reserves. And so what we're looking now is what our distribution is going to be. We'll work out a plan to distribute to our hospitals, but also looking at making sure we can have these for some of our rapid testing events across the community. There are no questions on testing. So flu shots, just want to note, we are doing flu drive-through pods this year because of COVID. And so it's always an opportunity to kind of approach it a little differently in light of not wanting people to be congregating together, particularly in long lines. So we are rolling out those pods, first one tomorrow at Tulare COS campus. And then this year, we also are trying something different and partnering with Rite Aid to allow county employees to get a voucher, basically, to go in and get their flu shot at Rite Aid, more on their convenience and their time. Again, recognizing the inherent challenges with large and mass events that we're trying to avoid. And then on our schools front, we have now 13 waivers approved at this point, 3 additional school sites since last week, Liberty in Tulare, Oak Valley in Tulare, and Stone Corral in Visalia. 1 school's pending state approval that was sent over this morning, and that's Pleasant View in Porterville. And then we have 18 schools that are pending revisions. The additional schools since last week, and I will say we got quite a few public schools now coming in. We have Sunnyside School in Strathmore, Traver Joint Elementary, Visalia Unified, including Roosevelt, Jefferson, Washington, Reagan, Lincoln, and Kennedy elementary schools. Also have Buena Vista in Tulare, Strathmore Elementary, and Exeter Unified, including Rocky Hill and Lincoln Elementary. So a lot of public schools now coming in, submitting their waivers. Overall, I know the team's been really impressed with some of the plans and detail that a lot of the schools are putting into their plan to bring students back. And then the last piece that I did want to hit on is we've now seen a notable trend, and this came out from our hospitals and then also through our behavioral health side, that we have seen a significant increase in youth needing inpatient hospitalization. So we're talking about severe acute mental illness that requires hospitalization. So we've seen that really spike in the month of September. We had been pretty stable within our range. We were watching it closely early on, and we kind of saw an uptick, and then things stabilized. But over the last month, we're about 3 times the number of youth being hospitalized. In behavioral health and our provider partners, are feeling based on, working with the youth and identifying some of the factors that the extended isolation from school and friends, home and family, loss of routine, all factors that have impacted heavily here.
So real quick, I mean, let's just stop right there. I mean, we're seeing a threefold increase in what we would normally have in this population group. I mean, the state's got to be seeing something similar, and you would think that they would look at the mental health and well-being of children and realize something has to be done. Is there any effort on a statewide level to help address this? I mean, what can we do? Obviously, we're seeing a significant increase in the number of schools that are seeking waiver applications to try to get these kids back on campus. But this isn't just in the K through 6 population. This is K through 12. I mean, this is everyone under the age of 18. And so, we haven't seen a single effort to try to bring kids back in the junior high to high school age, and we know that that's got to be a significant factor or portion of the population that's probably experiencing these challenges because no one is advocating for this population sector. So what's in the works? I mean, what can we expect? What can we advocate for to try to head this off? I'm not comfortable with hearing these numbers.
And I absolutely share that concern. Frustratingly, in any state call or state discussion I've had, this issue has not been brought up. And it is unfortunate, particularly when, and that's what our approach early on and our strategy for service delivery is really that whole person care. And obviously, the concern on COVID is very large and the risk to our youth, but we are ignoring a huge portion of an overall person's health and well-being, and this is a very clear indication of that. And I would surmise, and I'll ask staff to do an age breakdown if we can get an idea of age youth, because I would surmise that it's probably going to be your high school age youth that are the ones that are mostly being impacted by this. And you're right. At this point, there isn't a good path forward for them to return in counties in the purple tier. And this is just going to get worse as the semester goes on. We did evaluate the suicides. At this point, our suicides are still down for this year. But I am very, very worried that this is an early indicator of a tick up in our suicides as well, and that's something that, as a community, we have worked really hard over the last decade to bring that down and have some of the lowest rates in the state. But it's been very concerning to see this. So we are working, again, from early on, we meet with our providers for behavioral health. We have a strong partnership with Office of Education and have actually tried to bolster that partnership over the last year. And so we're going to be working to make sure we have behavioral health services available at our events, recognizing the importance of that, but also working on trainings for teachers and families on symptoms, risk factors, services available, and really trying to increase the amount of outreach. But obviously, until they come back to school, I think this is going to be a challenge. And that's it for my report.
All right. Any questions or comments from supervisors? Supervisor Crocker?
Thank you, Tim. It's good to see that we've got a couple of unified schools that are starting to go through the waivers. I know Lindsay's been working on it for a while, and now Exeter's has joined, so it's positive to see that. Are you guys seeing any? Are there additional challenges or opportunities with larger school districts that have more than one or two sites that might be a challenge or a benefit if they can spread out? Have you noticed?
Yeah, Lindsay obviously is the largest that we've had really come in terms of the number of schools that we're looking at. And one of the things that we're working through with them is we don't want them to have to do this, multiple waivers for each school, but also there are certain elements of the waiver, like the communication plan, who the on-site coordinator is, those types of things that are very specific to those campuses. So we're trying to identify ways to streamline it, but thus far, like I said, staff have been pleasantly surprised, I think, at the level of thought that has gone into a lot of the schools that have been putting these waivers together. And by and far, the administrators have been good to work with and listening. I would just say, too, and remind schools that even if they haven't put in the waiver yet, our team is available to assist and provide technical assistance. Because, yeah, we haven't seen, obviously, Porterville, we haven't seen Visalia, we haven't seen Tulare, and we haven't really had a lot of conversation with those districts. And I believe, at least in seeing news or hearing, through other channels, that they are preparing those waivers, but we don't have as much optics into that.
And I guess I bring that up because it's encouraging from my standpoint. I know I've still been communicating with other school districts that have not yet submitted, but they are working on the waiver process, and so it's hopefully others will be encouraged as more and more join up to open up and have some in-person education for their young people. As it relates to our, and I appreciate the information on the mental health of our kids and what that looks like, and more information is better. So I appreciate you guys being responsive to our requests and really just kind of being ahead of the curve as far as I'm concerned. We've talked about this, knowing that knowing that there would probably be an issue weeks ago, and unfortunately we're now seeing the spikes. As it relates to our overall case rate or our case numbers, we haven't really noticed any major spike since Labor Day. I mean, are we safe to say that here we are a month away from when Labor Day was, and we didn't see any spikes similar to what we saw with other holidays?
So cautiously, I will say yes. Clearly we haven't seen a major spike. We've seen kind of that plateau. And the key then in mitigating that plateau and ensuring it doesn't become that spike is, and our contact tracers, our timeliness is good right now. The volume, we definitely have enough contact tracers to keep up, but it's just getting people to cooperate with the contact tracers, recognizing that while we understand that it can be, people don't want to talk about what they've been doing and who they've been with, but for us, it's really about how do we stop this from going to the next person and the next person. It's not a value judgment on what they were out doing, but really about we just want to identify who could be exposed and stop it. So I agree in terms of overall, the plateau at least is not a huge spike, but a lot's going to depend on our effectiveness to keep it at bay, and then we would continue to see a decrease if we can do that.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's overall what I'm hearing is that it's positive. I think I was anticipating larger numbers based on what happened with Memorial Day and 4th of July and Mother's Day, Easter, and and that wasn't the case this time. As far as the equity measure and the map that you provided, it doesn't look like it matches with the Healthy Places Index. The Healthy Places Index has quite a bit more census tracts that are in that dark blue color, that last quartile. So if you could provide more information as far as, I know your sources on your map shows a number of different entities as far as how it's compiling. I'm not sure if that's just taken directly from Healthy Places or if we did our own map based on measures, but I'd be curious to see that, because that was last week one of my major concerns, is that the map that they have online is, again, it's a large portion of the county where the population is. And so, you know, what that looks like as far as being able to achieve anything is, or even targeting specific communities is very difficult when you have basically the whole county that's in some type of equity state. And what you're showing on your map, although it's not a small amount, there's a little bit more flexibility, I think, as far as targeting certain areas. So if you have more information on that, that'd be great. If not, if you could get back to us, then I would appreciate that.
I will ask our EPI to provide a little more depth and detail. So we did do both. Our EPI pulled the Healthy Places data and came up with what she felt was going to be the tracks. We did finally get from the state a list of those tracks, and they did align with what our EPI calculated, but I won't purport to know the specifics or details of why those tracks and you know, what criteria were used. So I will be happy to ask her to kind of provide a more in-depth summary of that, recognizing that it might get a little technical in nature, but obviously, since we're having to adjust our response to it, it's important that we can dig down into that data.
And from my standpoint, it's, you know, really what are the differences between what we're doing versus what Healthy Places has posted, you know, and maybe they have different things as far as how they calculate, but again, just from the eyeball test, I can see that there's multiple census tracts that are in that last quartile on theirs, but aren't in ours. And I'm not advocating that we have more in there. I just want to make sure that we're not focused on one direction and then, you know, we get a hand slap again. I mean, we're going to anyway, but try and minimize it.
But let's not, you know, let's not let that be it. I think it's a great question, and we will be happy to provide more in-depth information.
All right, Supervisor Valero.
Yes, thank you, Tim, for that great report. Just wanted to ask a quick question. Is there any way to remove the appointment requirement in the testing process to encourage more people to test, especially for those that are concerned with documentation?
So are you talking, I'm assuming mostly there you're talking about our Optum sites?
That, and then in other locations that we may be putting up more in the days to come.
Given our volume, we have been doing walk-up appointments at the Optum site, so people can do that. We encourage them to do that time, one, for flow, but also just so that they know if they're going to go there, they can get a test. But
Flyers indicate otherwise, because
Okay.
I know that they say appointment only, and so hence why some are reserved in doing so.
I will, and that's a good point on updating the flyer. I think the more challenging piece is the amount of documentation that the Optum sites require, and that's been a challenge we've had with all of the state resources. I mean, the Verily sites required a Google account, and so we literally were positioning staff there to assist on developing the Google account, getting all that information together for the person. So it's the barriers that we're trying to overcome. Sometimes we have control over, sometimes we don't. But I think broadcasting that at this point we are allowing walk-up, although It's not our preferred option. We definitely can accommodate that, and I think if it gets more people there, I would be happy to position staff there to help them check in and navigate that.
All right, Supervisor Struckling?
Yeah, Tim, you did mention that there was an uptick. I mean, I know there's not a spike, but there is an uptick in cases that you're seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, and what the uptick is, I mean, it's roughly where we were 2 weeks ago in terms of our weekly cases. It's in that case rate that you could see it going back up. So we definitely have a small uptick. The question now is, are we going to stay within that range now? And I think it's difficult to tell at this juncture.
Right. I guess the reason I ask my current concern with that is as you scroll through Facebook, I'm seeing weddings and rallies and funerals and all kinds of things that, people are gathering in large groups again, maybe some masked, some not, maybe not all. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that we are aware of that, and that
The
uptick
fall
may turn- yes.
activities are
And
very
the
big.
weather is cooling off. It'll be nice here for the next month or so. Thank you.
And protests and other things where people are gathering too. Okay, making sure. Okay, well, last comment that I want to make, Tim, just want to say thank you. I really do appreciate the work of your team. Clearly, the message is getting out to those who we are trying to target in the school sector, really trying to bring in our youth, and we've done a great job addressing a significant chunk of that age population. And I think your comment earlier about that subject of grades 7 through 12 not being brought up once in any state phone call, I think that really shows a huge gap that we need to work on addressing. So I know that there are some different efforts through day camp models or different things that I know some of the private schools have tried to put forth. But we definitely need to do what we can to advocate for this population. I know that there are other opportunities as you advance further along the colored tier scheme, but I just think that we definitely need to be proactive here so that we don't see a reversal of the trend that we've been working hard to prevent in the youth population. But again, thank you to the public health team. Thank you to your schools team. Almost a year into this, I don't know, 7 months, who knows? But it just, it's draining. It's, really getting on all of us, and people are getting restless. But your team continues to work hard and really provide excellent customer service through the public health realm and through schools as they try to navigate through this difficult time. So I just want to really say thank you for that effort. Supervisor Valero?
All right. Yeah, just wanted to point out for those that may be listening that are in education or administrators, I know that this is around the time where schools end up hosting college and career fairs, or as well. For right now, I know that Woodlake and Orosi are looking at doing college day, or career day, but it'll be online virtually. And I think that we also need to do a big push of maybe doing social emotional behavior conference sessions, workshops with students via Zoom, so that way we also not only have the focus of career day, but also a wellness day where students can have access to those type of resources, given what is happening now in our present day. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tim. Appreciate that presentation. Very well done. Next, we'll move on to item 3 on our agenda, which is public comments. I have several requests in front of me. I will call first Pam Silva. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Public comment can be limited and will be limited to 3 minutes and is about any item within our jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I am encouraged by the questions that the board is asking today. I thank God that there's some common sense coming into this, and I really appreciate it. I'd like to say that I'm very also encouraged by the Sheriff's Department arresting 13 pedophiles online. And kudos to our Sheriff's Department. The children are more at danger online now because they're spending more time online. So getting them back to school in a normal environment might also help them. I was listening to Tim, and he said that there's the two testing, the antigen, which is quick, and that's actually looking for the actual virus. But the PCR is a polymerase chain reaction, and it amplifies those virus molecules, whatever virus that is. It's like growing COVID. So they're having to amplify it and amplify it and amplify it, find it. And I find it curious that our state says, no, we have to amplify it to find it. We don't want those quick antigen tests. So that's a good question. I found that really strange. And then also about the testing. Now the state of California says you have to test because we want to make sure that the population is being tested. We want to keep an eye on this. I get that. But to force us to get tested for this mandate, I find it unsettling that we have to test people who don't have any symptoms and then use the PCR test that's amplifying it. So that would give you people who might have a cold, because that's some of the same. The coronavirus is also a cold. There is some research on that. A lot of doctors saying that, this might be the false positives. Somebody has had it recently, or, there's all of that. Let me see. So getting back to Tim's report with the mental health, everybody is going through some sort of trauma from this. And I understand it's a virus, I understand, but this was supposed to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve, to slow the spread. We've done that. And you guys, we've done that and more. And they just keep moving that ball. It's like Lucy and Charlie Brown. So it's like make me, the government that's got its boot on our neck saying, yeah, we're going to just leave this here until you make it stop. So, and there's something else going on with the elections, and Michelle Moore here is going to give you some more information on that with the Secretary of State.
Thank you. Next, I have a request from Michelle Moore. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Michelle Moore. I live in Tulare. I'm here today to inform you that we have some issues concerning our elections. And I would first like to ask you, maybe by a show of hands, if you had received any phone calls from your constituents about receiving more than just their ballots. No one?
Normally the board doesn't respond during public comment. This
Okay.
is your time.
Well, I have learned through local Tulare County Facebook pages and other friends that people are receiving more than just their ballots. Examples are a business who received ballots for someone who's never worked there. They received at their home a ballot from a previous resident. Another post was a son whose registered voter moved out of state. I've seen several people state that the ballot they received was for someone who's never lived in that home because they bought it new. I have a friend who wasn't able to come. Her son had passed away 6 years ago, and she is still receiving his ballot, and she has received his ballot for every election since. She took his death certificate to the elections office to have him removed from the rolls 6 years ago, and apparently that is not being taken care of. I have one report from a postman, actually. He has gotten dozens and dozens of vote-by-mail ballots that are being returned to them undeliverable. He reported that he gave a ballot, 7 ballots to one home, and 4 of those ballots were the home's address, and they returned the other 3 back. So how many ballots will be returned to the registrar has been spending time to track down those voters to come and fix their registration. And let me tell you, there is an emergency. We do have an emergency in Tulare County and all throughout the state. Secretary of State Padilla has come up with 14 new regulations at the last moment possible. Then the citizens do not have any time to make public comment. Most of these new regulations are outside the purview of the executive branch of government because they supersede a countermand what is codified in the California Election Code. Any such change may only be sanctioned by an act of the state legislature, not simply declared executive edict. Padilla's new regulation 20960J makes it very unlikely that any envelope signature will be rejected. Without any basis in California law, the regulation imposes a standard newly occurring only in criminal procedures, requiring that 2 additional election officials agree beyond a reasonable doubt that the signatures do not match. Now a voter does not even need a genuine ballot. They can just mark a sample ballot or scroll votes on a letter or a note. A diligent fraudster can stuff 1 barcode ballot return envelope with as many note card ballots as will fit, scribble the names and signatures on additional voters somewhere on the envelope, and because signature verification has been weakened, such fraud could well succeed. California Election Code 2300A 9 and 10 give California voters the right to observe every aspect of the election process, ask questions, and receive answers.
Can you please wrap up your comments,
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Election 15104 provides observers the right to observe the vote by mail ballot close enough to see the signatures and marks on the ballots. And a judge ruled in January 2019 in favor of Election Integrity Project California, and he ordered the state to update the voter rolls as required by law. Removal of the dead and moved voters was to take place first, and apparently that hasn't happened. And I'll be glad to forward the information by email with you if you take an interest in what I've told you here today.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next, I have a request from Nicole Heisen, sorry.
Good morning.
Morning. Please state your name and address.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name is Nicole, and I've been a home care provider for 3 years. I live in District 3, and I am here to ask the Tulare Board to prioritize the home care providers. For the last several months, we have been bargaining and have gone nowhere. This is unacceptable. We have been celebrating wage increases with our fellow coworkers and other counties and wondering when we will get to celebrate. When will the Tulare Board bargain us and living wages during this pandemic? We are here today and we'll be back every Tuesday to remind the board that there are essential workers who provide care for the elderly and disabled, to remind you guys that we need a contract.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional public comments here today from members in attendance in the audience? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Good morning, Board. My name is Thelma Cuevas. I live in District 4. I have been a home care provider for the past 6 years for my aunt. I'm here to address to the Tulare Board today and ask that you prioritize home care providers. We have seen many counties before and during the pandemic, home care providers given them a wage increase. As you can see on the list that we have shared with you, these are contracts that were being closed this year with SEIU 2015. Other counties have recognized how essential these workers are. We are providers here in Tulare County are asking that our board demonstrate the leadership and give us a contract this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional public comments from members in attendance, members of the public? Okay, seeing no more from in-person attendees, are there any phone public comments this morning, Madam Clerk?
We do not have any.
Okay, seeing no phone comments, I will close the public comment period and take up the consent calendar, items 4 through 21. Do we have any changes or corrections requested by board members? Supervisor Crocker?
No changes. I just wanted to make a comment on item 12 and just appreciate Donna Ortiz and her staff of mental health. That was another great annual report. So, Tim, I know you're here. Please send our regards to them.
All right. Any members of the public wish to comment on any consent calendar items? Okay, seeing no one, Chair will entertain a motion on the consent calendar. We have a motion by Supervisor Shucklian, a second by Supervisor Valero. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to our untimed portion of our meeting today. Take up item 22, which is a request from the Human Resources Department to approve the annual salary for the position of General Services Agency Director.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jason Brick, County Administrative Officer, here for Human Resources and Development today. In compliance with the Government Code Section 54953C3, this is the oral announcement for the recommended final action on salary schedule, and compensation to be paid in the form of fringe benefits of the General Services Agency Director, a local agency executive, prior to taking this final action. The request is to approve the annual salary for the position of General Services Agency Director in Bargaining Unit 10 in the amount of $130,000 with the same standard benefits provided to Bargaining Unit 10 employees and an additional benefit of auto allowance at $581 monthly effective October 11th, 2020. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from board members, members of the public? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Supervisor Valero, a second by Supervisor Shucklian. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We will now take up item 23, which is a request from the Human Resources Department to approve the annual salary for the position of County Counsel in Bargaining Unit 10. And how did our locked door not work? Oh, hi, Deanne. Nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you for attending today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jason Britt, County Administrative Officer, here for Human Resources. Again, this is also in compliance with Government Code Section 54953C3, and this is to orally announce the and ask for the approval of the annual salary for the position of County Counsel in Bargaining Unit 10 in the amount of $185,000 with the same standard benefits provided to Bargaining Unit 10 employees with an additional benefit of auto allowance at $581 monthly effective October 11th, 2020. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from board members? If not, Chair will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Supervisor Shuckley and a second by Supervisor Townsend. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Next, we will take up item 24, which is a request from the County Administrative Office to approve a personnel resolution to amend the fiscal year 2020-2021 position allocation as follows.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jason Brick, County Administrative Officer. This item is actually being brought forward to the board on behalf of TCAG, the Tulare County Association of Governments. This is a request to approve and amend, approve the following personnel resolution amending the fiscal year 2021 position allocations to add one full-time equivalent office assistant 3 position effective October 11th, 2020 as adopted by the TCAG board. I do see Mr. Smalley here who may, if there's any questions, he can assist us in answering those questions.
Any questions or comments from board members, members of the public? If not, Chair will entertain a motion. Have a motion by Supervisor Valero since he pushed the button first. A second by Supervisor Townsend. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we will now move on and take up item 25, which is a request from the County Administrative Office to adopt a resolution demanding that Governor Newsom work more closely with counties to increase the clarity, consistency, and continuity of direction regarding the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you,
CEO.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Jason Britt, County Administrative Officer. This was a referral made to staff during September 29th board meeting. And this board has continued to have some questions and frustrations about the governor's continuing changing directives related to testing and other metrics that are as part of the governor's safer blueprint to a safer economy. So today, what staff is proposing is a resolution to be sent to the governor demanding more clarity, consistency, and continuity regarding the COVID-19 directives to counties. Essentially, stop moving the goalpost. Back in July, we submitted attestations to the Department of Finance stating we would follow the state's health orders and the blueprint for the economy at that time, and subsequent, there has been multiple changes subsequent to that. So essentially, what we've agreed to and what we've talked about has been changed multiple times. So you do have a resolution in front of you, and between the publication of this resolution last Thursday and today, there has been some recommended staff changes. So what I'll do is go through each paragraph and read those into the record, and then we'll give it back to the board for any further input. So looking at the resolution, starting on page 1, in paragraph number 2, the second whereas, we would just like to add the word extraordinary in the last sentence. So it should read, whereas the Tulare County Board of Supervisors recognizes and appreciates the tremendous difficulty and work associated with managing the country, state, and county through this extraordinary public health emergency. Going down to now what is the 5th paragraph, we would like to change that paragraph to read, whereas the Tulare County Board of Supervisors believes that the biggest threat to slowing the spread of COVID-19 is large and private public gatherings for extended period of times where basic public health guidelines and best practices are not being implemented or ignored. So that's all the changes for page 1. Moving on to page 2, the first whereas, we just want to add Tulare County as a state mandated condition in that first sentence, the remainder of that, and we want to strike Tulare County from the third sentence after state's federal allocation. So whereas Tulare County has a state mandated condition to receive CARES Act funding, i.e. From the state's federal allocation, certified that it will continue to adhere to the governor's stay-at-home requirements, and other health requirements as directed in gubernatorial executive number N3320 and subsequent executive orders of statutes and all the California Department of Public Health orders, directives, and guidance in response to the COVID-19 emergency. And then we want to submit a separate paragraph, brand new, where it says, whereas on July 10th, 2020, as a state condition to receiving CARES Act funding, Tulare County submitted a certification agreeing to adhering to the state orders and guidance, and whereas since March 19th, 2020, Governor Newsom and the California Department of Public Health have modified state COVID-19 orders, directives, criteria, requirements, and guidelines for COVID-19 impacting all Californians, all California counties, all economic activity, and other public and private activities on multiple occasions and without collaboration or consultation with the entities such orders impact. So that will be in addition to that third paragraph. And then all other whereases on page 2 remain the same. Moving on to page 3, we want to insert a new whereas that reads, whereas Governor Newsom is now arbitrarily inflating overall case rate numbers in those counties who have an overall testing rate below the statewide average, further slowing and complicating a county's move into a less restrictive tier, and whereas the median statewide testing rate is a moving target and the relevance of using this measure to adjust the county's case rates is unclear, and we will leave the whereas for the new criterion. Okay, so I know this is confusing, and then we will add 3 additional whereases to be read as this. Whereas due to the constant changing orders and metrics, Tulare County continues to bear the increasing burden and expense of adjusting its pandemic response strategies and tracking mechanisms so that it may continue to receive the CARES Act funding it has been allocated. And whereas Tulare County and its residents have been especially hindered by these changing metrics as other counties begin to move through the tiers that allow for reopening of in-person education, leaving Tulare County behind in the education of its youth and lead to significant emotional, nutritional, and physical harm. And whereas the governor's newly established health equity measures will have a disproportionately negative impact on Tulare County's agricultural community, low-income residents, disadvantaged students, and other community groups. And then the remaining whereas remains the same. Going down now into page 4 and part of the resolution, they are numbered. So we want to add a number, let me see how the original, sorry. I want to make sure we read this correctly. So, so we will add to that list of numbers there, we will add to what it will be a new number 8 after the old number 7. We will add Tulare County demands that Governor Newsom follow through with his commitments to the Central Valley and provide Tulare County with the necessary contracts and infrastructure development to meet the state's metric for testing volume. And then the original number 8 and 9 will stay the same, and we will insert a new number 11, which will be Tulare County demands that due to the increasing burden and expense to Tulare County that these changing orders have presented, the state distribute in its entirety the remaining CARES Act funding allocated to Tulare County under the State Budget Act of 2020. And with that, that concludes my report, and I'm available for questions or direction from the board on further changes to the proposed resolution.
All right, this is Board of Supervisors. Time to provide feedback on this resolution. Supervisor Townsend.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for that report. And I want to thank council and the CAO and staff for putting this together and going through those additional edits that our CAO just read through. It seems like that's really good wording. It seems like it included everything that we sort of had discussed and wanted to see, requesting more consistency from the state, more clarity, stop changing the rules, as you mentioned, and then adding to release the CARES Act funding, the remainder of the CARES Act funding that is still sitting at the state. And so I think it's a great follow-up to the first letter, which was sort of a reminder letter, sort of a courtesy reminder letter that the state owed us some money from the CARES Act. And this is a little bit, has a little bit more oomph to it and addresses a lot of those concerns. So I just really thank you for putting that together. Appreciate it.
All right, Supervisor Shuckling.
My question is, what do we think will happen with this? I mean, do we really think the governor will say, yeah, sorry, Tulare County, yeah, go ahead and I'll change everything back for you guys? I mean, do we think that's going to happen, or is this just more of a statement?
I think that's a good question, Supervisor Shuckling. I think what I've been told by others is that the governor's office does take these resolutions seriously. They do look at them. I think the idea is after today, if the board were to adopt this resolution, we would be joining Kern and Sutter counties. Sutter, yes, I believe, in similar resolutions. I believe Placer has already passed a similar resolution, although in a little different form. So I think the idea is that as more counties continue to demand the stopping of the changing goalpost, then that will then bring results. Will our resolution on of its own face bring that results? That I don't know.
And in it, we're not saying that we're, opening the county or anything like that. We're going to continue to follow the guidelines of the state health officer, but we would just like a little more fairness.
Correct. I think this is really in response to, the frustration not only on the staff, but on our communities, our businesses, education, about the moving goalposts. Back in, I can't remember what month it was, but if we would have been under the pre-color-coded schema, there's been so many changes we can't even keep track. We probably would have likely been eligible to move on to reopening more of our economy and more of our schools and et cetera. But because the goalpost and because the metrics keep changing, particularly just like you heard this morning from the Health and Human Services Agency Director about now adding a health equity metric, although in of itself may sound like a very, good idea, it continues to hamper Tulare County's ability to move through the tiers and reopen more of our economy and education, which also from our HSA director this morning said, we have, an uptick in depression and suicide attempts and different things from our youth. So it's really about communicating that. It's not about, hey, we're not following along. It's more about, hey, we're following along, but stop changing the rules, if I could be so blunt.
All right, Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you. Thank you, staff, for putting this together and hearing some of our concerns in the past. I think it's important to send a strong message to the governor. We've done that in the past, and I think it's time to do that again. He has indicated that when governments and individuals stand together and apply pressure, then he is more willing to bend. And I think this is what, even though this action may not have any immediate resolution to our situation, I think that the more vocal we can be, the more pressure that will build behind them. And the example is that we saw what happened months ago with beaches. Beaches were initially closed, and pressure built, and the governor caved on beaches. We're also seeing what's going on with Disneyland and with amusement parks, and there's a tremendous amount of pressure that he's getting for that, and it's very difficult for us here to recognizing the challenges that those amusement parks have, but we have businesses that need to be opened as well, need to have options. We have schools that need those options, and if he caves to amusement parks, why should we be hindered and be closed down? So I think that's a real likelihood. Amusement parks and those companies, they have a tremendous amount of weight. They have a ton of employees. They generate lots of revenue for this state and for those local jurisdictions. And as our CAO mentioned, we've gone through multiple iterations of some type of changing goalposts. I mean, we've seen this, from the shutdown to tiers to now color coding and this new equity measure. I mean, there's just been multiple iterations of it, and we know that in the past, whether we were looking at hospitalizations, we were looking at how many tests we could get, what our PPE numbers, we have hospitalizations where we have adequate capacity. The state didn't even want to open up PDC when they spent all that money into upgrading that. And now that's shut down because there isn't a need for that surge facility. So there's plenty of indications showing that things are stabilizing and that we need to have some more options. So I think this is very timely, and I'm fully supportive of this.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, sure.
I'd just like to add, sort of going back to trying to finish Supervisor Shucklin's question is, I think by the board adopting a resolution versus sending a letter, it also sends a much stronger message. First of all, this board doesn't adopt resolutions of this type very often, so that in itself is a big deal. And number two, I think when the public looks at this and the governor looks at this and the rest of the state looks at this, they may apply more weight to it because it's more of an official act versus sending a letter and just sort of lodging. We're asking for real change here.
Thank you. And I agree. I think it's important that we collectively as a board send this resolution. I think that that will add weight to it. And I also think that it's important perspective coming from one of the larger non-direct allocation CARES Act counties. I think that that's an important point to point out as to why we should be receiving our CARES Act allocation in full rather than on a payment schedule. And I do think that we capture a lot of the sentiment and feedback, and I do think that the point of this is advocacy. And I believe that it's important for our residents in Tulare County, businesses, constituents alike, to see that this board is advocating for them. And so they can know that this board is not happy with the way the rules have been changing and how we've been subject to and had to play ball because so many conditions have been held over our head, whether it's state licenses being revoked or CARES Act allocations, now public safety allocations being withheld from the state. And I just believe it's important policy to send this, and I think that Supervisor Crocker made a point about collective importance and having numerous counties make this point to the state of California. I think that this will hopefully get the governor's attention and will maybe bring some fruitful results for Tulare County. I mean, if anything, we're on record with our feelings and our sentiment here, and I believe that's very important. So we may not get him to stand out on the gubernatorial balcony and wave a magic wand or do anything that we may be specifically requesting directly, but I think he can acknowledge what we have put forward, and hopefully we'll see some direct changes as a result. So, I know that we do have public comment on this item. I will take up public comment right now for those who are in attendance. Pamela Silva, please come forward, state your name and address. Limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello again, my name is Pamela Silva, I live in Visalia. So it is exciting that you guys are going to pass this resolution. And I don't know if you guys want to add to it that the California Assemblyman, Kiley and Gallagher, they filed a brief in a lawsuit against Gavin Newsom's one-man rule. It says our very system of government and way of life is what is at stake. Now, it's true. Laws are being written under color of law. And we just can't allow it to happen. With the little carrot, you know, that CARES Act money just dangling in front of your nose. It's really disgusting to watch. So yes, we are looking forward to this being in the courts, and hopefully you guys can support that in this resolution also. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comments on this item, please come forward, state your name and address.
Michelle Moore, I live in Tulare. So again, I would like to point out that our whole California government seems to be out of control. We have the governor and the Secretary of State moving the goalpost at the end of a beginning of an election. He changed the goalpost. We have the AG filing 50, 60, 70, 80, I don't even know how many now, lawsuits against the Trump administration. You know, the Secretary of State had agreed about our signatures in August, and now he's moved that goalpost and changed the laws here at the last moment. And I would like to know how many businesses are going to close permanently because of these mandates that are going on. Our tax base, what is this doing to our tax base? And then lastly, I'd like to state that during the H1N1 issue, the flu, a year ago or so, 2 years ago, 60 million people were involved. Now, yes, there was only 12,000 some odd deaths, but we did not close down our economy. 60 million people were affected. So I think that we are just going in the wrong direction. I think that our governor is going in the wrong direction. And we appreciate the resolution today, and we hope that we could follow up, possibly even with a lawsuit if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any additional public comments in person? All right, seeing none, any phone comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we do have a phone call. Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
My name is Blanca Escobedo with Leadership Council. I'm just calling today because I noticed that the updated resolution isn't shown on the agenda packet, and it's supposed to be made available to the public, any updates to the writing material, so I just wanted to flag that. Also, this health equity metric, I wanted to say that this tells us nothing new. Underserved communities, in terms of infrastructure, health services, food access, and clean water access, are showing the highest positivity rates. And while I understand that this makes it harder to move on to the next tier, and it is frustrating to change the goalpost, I hope that this is an opportunity to serve these communities and double down on the resources and investments that they need, because these communities have been struggling since day one. They have not had a choice but to go to work. A lot of these communities are composed of farm workers and essential workers. And so I hope that with the work that the Community Care Coalition and the Healthy Harvest Program is doing, that there's a continued outreach and investment into these communities to really help them decrease their positivity rates and increase testing. So we're encouraged by that. So we also hope that the board really takes these opportunities to fill the gaps in these inequities. Thank you.
Any additional phone comments, Madam Clerk?
That concludes public comment.
All right, I will close the public comment period and bring it back to the board for formal action. Okay, incorporating the corrections that were presented by the CAO, correct? Okay. We have a motion by Supervisor Shucklian, a motion by Supervisor Townsend, seconded by Supervisor Shucklian. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Next, we're going to move on and take up item 26, which is a presentation given by the Tulare County Council regarding the overview of the department, and I'm curious which county council will be giving this presentation, the retired one or the present one? Okay.
It's me. I also have our legal team and our risk manager here to present on their portions of the presentation, just so you can put a face to the name and get to know our team. And there is a PowerPoint. Is it up there? Hoping not to have to walk down. All right. So this is a presentation about Tulare County Council. We have Deanne Peterson here today, who is our current sitting county council. Next slide. So County Council's office by statute is the attorney for the county. Its officers, employees, and in their official capacity in certain public entities like our memorial districts or our cemetery districts and some of your joint powers authorities in which the county participates. We also, under County Council, have risk management, which is charged with protecting the county's employees' physical and fiscal assets. Risks, programs, and services are an integral component of the office. So those are your general liability programs, your workers' compensation, and disability management. Next slide. County Council serves as the legal advisor to our collective Board of Supervisors. We're present during the board meetings and serve on Brown Act and other legal requirements. We answer questions of law, which are referred to our office for legal opinions for all of our departments and, again, the different agencies that County Council's office represent. In addition to the legal advice we provide, we also defend and prosecute civil actions where the county or any of our officers or employees are named as parties in their official capacity. We also defend some civil litigation actions against county employees for any acts or omissions within the scope of their public duties. On average, our county counsel's office advises on and or litigates approximately 1,534 legal matters per year. And our risk management office receives approximately and oversees approximately 531 different types of general liability and workers' compensation claims, which we defend against each year. Next slide. This is our mission and vision. Our vision is to meet the legal and risk management challenges facing the County of Tulare in partnership with our clients. And our mission is to provide quality and innovative services to the benefit of our clients and which support the general good of this county. Our office is divided into 7 teams: administrative, fiscal, labor and employment, litigation, protective services, resources, and risk management, and we'll be going over each of those teams for you today. There are approximately 60 employees in our office, which is a combination of attorneys, paralegals, risk management staff, clerical, and accounting staff. We have approximately 24 attorneys with varying levels of experience from 2 years to 41 years of experience in our office, which averages to about 17.2 years of practice, with experience in public agency law. Some have experience in criminal law, and others have some varying levels of experience working in private practice as well. This is a chart of your historical county councils, starting with Leroy McCormick in 1946 and most recently ending with Deanne Peterson, serving from 2017 through the end of this week. Next slide. We would be for naught without our administrative team. They provide our general clerical support, handle complex and confidential tasks, provide us with the tools we need. They file and serve our complaints and claims. But most importantly, during this pandemic, they've worked tirelessly with our office to make sure every area was set up for social distancing, that we had enough cleaning supplies, hand sanitizers in place, and they have been our Zoom experts, our video conferencing experts in scheduling and making sure that we have all the tools we need to carry out our legal duties during this pandemic. Next slide. We then have our fiscal unit that manages our departmental budget. They also manage our insurance funds budget, so workers' comp, general liability, medical malpractice. They process our payroll, do our billings, and they have also been instrumental during this pandemic to make sure we had the funds and used CARES Act monies appropriately in order to continue to work in the office safely during this pandemic. Next, we'll have Diana Mendez, Deputy County Counsel, to discuss our labor and employment team.
Hi, good morning, Board. I'm Diana Mendez. I'm a member of the office's labor and employment team, also known as the LET team. Our team consists of our chief, 4 deputy county counsels, 1 legal support specialist, and 2 paralegals. And we work very closely with our admin team and our fiscal unit, to get our day-to-day tasks done. And as our name implies, we deal with every aspect of labor and employment for every county department. So our clients come from all county departments. We also serve as general counsel to risk management, human resources, the grand jury, all county health and safety departments, including HHSA, sheriff, probation, district attorney, public defender, and the Department of Child Support Services. So we're, the lawyers for the lawyers, so to speak. We're also attorneys for and general counsel for the San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority, the 457 Deferred Compensation Plan, and the Task Force on Homelessness. And for these specific clients, we also sit as Brown Act counsel during their meetings. And some of the tasks our team assists clients with are Public Records Act requests, unemployment insurance claims, employee discipline matters, contracts, responding to DFEH and EOC complaints. We also work very closely with risk management in dealing with employment issues related to things such as workers' compensation, medical accommodation, and OSHA matters. And with, obviously with the pandemic, we've had to learn new ways of working, new ways of communicating with our clients and providing our services. So our team was greatly involved in developing countywide and department pandemic response policies. And we also developed and provided necessary online trainings to meet requirements while still complying with ever-changing pandemic restrictions and requirements. One such example is our team is responsible for providing the AB 1825 sexual harassment training to county employees. We had to move that to an online platform. So, I guess I drew the short straw. I'm currently, my voice is the voice of the AB 1825 training for the county. So, we've had to adapt, and the team's been really great at adapting and finding new ways to work with our clients. And we also oversee employment investigations to ensure that there are thorough, fair, and unbiased investigations utilizing various forms of socially distanced, investigation techniques which came about because of the pandemic. So that is the labor and employment team in a nutshell, and now I'll pass it off to Kathleen Taylor to discuss litigation.
Good morning. As Diana mentioned, I'm the chief of the litigation team. We have 3 additional attorneys on the team, 3 paralegals and 1 legal specialist. In connection with that, we represent, defend the county and its employees in state and federal litigation. In that role, unlike most of the office, we develop individual attorney-client relationships with frontline employees who are being sued or have been subpoenaed to testify in litigation related to their employment. In conjunction with risk, we also monitor matters that are being handled by outside counsel. We work very hard to develop relationships with outside counsel so that we can keep as many tasks in-house as possible, since many of those things we can do more economically. We also represent the county in a variety of matters, basically anything that the county gets hauled into court for, from orders from a particular judge that wants to hear from mental health, excess proceeds litigation. We get warrants and appear in court on code enforcement matters. We also represent the individual department in hearings before your board and the Retirement Association in disability retirement matters. Each year we appear, either advise the departments or appear with witnesses in response to hundreds of subpoenas. In a lot of litigation that doesn't directly involve the county, people want to hear from county employees or see county records. In connection with all of that, we've established, in conjunction with all the departments, provided training on litigation hold procedures, which are constantly changing as the technology for keeping hold of electronic information and electronic records has changed. Like all of the other teams, we've had to adapt new ways of handling matters in the days of a pandemic. Many of those ways, with the added technology that we have, will allow us to utilize the technology for remote appearances and similar things for ongoing economic benefits in litigation, even after things resolve. And on an ongoing matter, we work closely with risk to identify potential liabilities, analyze liabilities early on before they reach the litigation stage in order to avoid liability to the county and overall reduce expenditures. And then I'll hand it over to John Rosen, the chief of the Protective Services team.
Morning, Chairman Vanderpool, members of the board, Mr. Britt. Ms. Flores and Madam Clerk. My name is John Rosen. I am the Chief Deputy of the Protective Services Team. I've been with County Council since 1989. I've been the chief of this team since 1997. We have 5 attorneys on our team. We have and 2 paralegals and support staff. We have a very experienced team. In addition to my experience, the next senior attorney on our team has about 20 years of experience. The most junior person on our team has almost 10 years of experience. We have basically 2 main assignments on our team. That is to represent child welfare services in child abuse and neglect cases, otherwise known as dependency cases. And secondly, to represent the public guardian in mental health in conservatorship cases. In the child dependency cases, we attend court at the juvenile detention facility where there are 3 judges. The judges handle delinquency cases as well, but our assignment is focused on dependency. Our attorneys go to court every day in juvenile court. We were going to court at the South County facility, but currently all of our matters are being conducted at juvenile detention facility north of town. We have very good relations with the juvenile court judges. Here are some stats from our team. We have about 800 active cases in the child abuse and neglect field, the CWS cases. We have about 150 cases for the conservatorships. For the child abuse cases, a case is considered a family, so there's actually more than 800 children that we're dealing with at any one point in time. I thought since we don't really get to speak with you much because our matters are all confidential, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you for a bit, and I thought maybe I would give you some trends. So in the child abuse and neglect field, since I began doing this work, the majority of our cases involve drug abuse, and it's usually general neglect. These are the cases that actually get to juvenile court. Started out with cocaine back in the 90s. The only thing that's really changed is the drug. And so for the last many years, it's methamphetamine. That is still currently the major problem with our cases and the major drug that parents are trying to overcome. We haven't really seen an increase in the opiate cases that are prevalent in other parts of the country, although it is present in Tulare County. Within the last several months, we have seen an increase in serious physical abuse cases for children under 2, which is very concerning. Those are very difficult cases for us to handle. And we have also seen an increase in domestic violence cases. That's the CPS end of things. In the conservatorship end of things, we have 2 sub-assignments there. One is the traditional probate conservatorship, where usually an elderly person can't take care of themselves, often somebody who has dementia. There's no one else to take care of them. The public guardian steps in and becomes the conservator. The other subset is the LPS conservatorships, where a person due to a mental disorder cannot care for his needs. In the probate realm, the trend that I would share with you is that within the last, I would say, 6 to 7 years, we are seeing a lot more probate cases. And those are cases where an elderly person can't take care of themselves, as I said, oftentimes because of dementia, but not always. And either there is absolutely no one available to do that, no family members are available, there are no family members, or there are family members who can't or don't want to take care of the elderly person, or I think most tragically, there are family members who are actually abusing or neglecting the elder. And then in those cases, the public guardian will step in and take over and take care of the elderly. So we didn't used to see those cases that much. We're seeing a lot more of those. In the LPS realm, the big trend for us within the last 5 years, I would say, we're getting a lot more referrals from the criminal court for defendants who have a mental disorder, and the court doesn't know what to do with them. Used to be we would get no referrals, but about 5-6 years ago, they started referring these cases to us. These are cases where the defendant has been declared incompetent, and so they cannot stand trial, but they have committed some sort of criminal act, and the court doesn't want to release them to the public. So in those cases, the court refers those matters to mental health and public guardian, who then do evaluations. Those cases are difficult. Many times the defendant will qualify for a conservatorship. One of the difficult things about them is we have to find a place to put them. We don't want to keep them in jail, and there is limited space available in the facilities throughout the state to house people like this and provide the care they need. So it's a big challenge. I think we have good relations with the courts in the criminal realm as well, and they seem to work with us, but that is a big challenge for us. I'm going to turn over, if there's no questions, are there any questions?
Great presentations. Great to hear from you, John.
Thank you. So I will now turn over the mic to Jeff Kuhn, who is the chief, of our resource team.
Thank you.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having us today. Appreciate that. I'm Jeff Kuhn. I'm the chief deputy for the resource team. We handle what everybody else doesn't. We're the principal lawyers for your board, for the CAO, RMA, GSA, fire, all the financial departments, basically all the non-justice, the non-HR, the non-HHSA and non-HR departments, so pretty much everybody else. We also serve as Brown Act counsel and general counsel to the various boards, committees, and commissions. Let's see, whoops, so I could do that. Including the Planning Commission, LAFCO, TCAG, the Transportation Authority, the new Regional Transit Agency, the RDA Oversight Committee, the Audit Committee, the Assessment Appeals Board, all the various advisory and non-advisory boards, committees, and commissions that you all serve on. Generally, we serve with you to assist you with those. We also provide, upon request, services to some of our special districts, including the Veterans Memorial Districts, the infamous public cemetery districts, always interesting, and some others. We assist the litigation team in defending the county in land use, environmental, and public works issues. We're involved, for example, in working with outside counsel in the pistachio wars that are currently going on. We also were involved heavily with the dairy cares litigation, and we've been involved with challenges to the general plan and other litigation, again, involving planning and land use matters. We also work closely with outside counsel on special projects, such as the redistricting project that's just getting underway and that is in the planning stages. That will obviously take up a lot of all of our efforts this coming year as we get into redistricting and revising as necessary the boundaries of your own districts. Let's see. So just a few statistics on workload. Again, with the labor and employment team, we prepared, edited, reviewed, and approved nearly 900 board resolutions, 460 board agreements, 17 ordinances, and over 1,000 board agenda items last fiscal year. Other highlights for us over this last year were Again, resolving the Dairy Cares litigation with the Sierra Club and the Center for Biological Diversity. And we think that was a very successful resolution that maintained the streamlined and innovative approach that the county has taken to regulation of dairies. We've also, I think, reasonably successful in resolving a complex construction claims on the South County Detention Facility. We should have added to the list, we were successful in negotiating an MOU with the Tule River Indian Tribe over their casino relocation project, with your board's direction and a lot of work on behalf of the CAO and the departments. So that is a look at the resource team. The team itself consists of myself, and then we have 5 full-time attorneys and 1 legal support specialist that assists with that. And we also have a number of sort of alumni who are working for us on an extra help basis to help us fill in the gaps, including my friend Clint Sims, who is in the back there, I think, who's been a good mentor to me and to all of us for many years, and we appreciate his help. Okay. Any questions about the resource team?
Great to see Clint come all the way from Chicago just for the presentation.
And we'll ask Susan Cox to come forward from the risk management team.
Good morning. I've had the pleasure of being here about 3.5 years now. It's amazing how quickly it has gone by. Okay. I lead a team of 12 wonderful individuals. They're dedicated. They work closely with all of the teams within risk management or within county council, but also they work closely with every department to try and protect our employees, our resources, fiscal, and property. We have 2 primary teams. The first, both are led by supervising risk analysts. The first is the general liability, insurance, safety and loss control, and the other team of 6, led by a supervising risk analyst, is workers' comp and disability management. Very quickly, I'd like to talk about, we have 5 program areas basically: risk transfer and insurance programs. That's where we try and take the risk and have somebody else, we may pay a premium, but we transfer the risk off. The second area is our self-insured programs of general liability, our claims administration, our safety program and loss control efforts, our county's workers' comp self-insurance program, and then the administration of the county's disability management program for our employees. Very quickly going through these, risk transfer is, again, removing that risk to somebody else. We oversee our participation in PRISM. You used to know it as CSAC EIA. It's now called Public Risk Innovation Solutions Management, JPA. I don't think you could have gotten any more confusing. Our 2 major self-insurance program there is, of course, the workers' comp, which we're self-insured up to $125 per injury, and our general liability, which we're self-insured up to $250 before reinsurance would come in. One of the things that a lot of times we don't realize is the amount of contracts, service agreements, et cetera, the county has with other vendors. About 2 years ago, we worked with HSA directly, and because they said, why do we have to get every insurance document for every program from the same vendor, let's say CSET? It just makes doing business with us difficult. So we worked with them and said, okay, if it's the same vendor doing the same program, we created a initial review of the risks to make sure we have the appropriate insurance coverages. But then if it's just the renewal of the same program, we don't have to go through that lengthy process. So we significantly, with HSSA and other departments, cut down on the insurance review time for contracts and make it easier to do business with us. Also, we process insurance certificates, endorsement and things of that sort for people doing business with us. So those are some key areas kind of behind the scenes. We are self-administered for our general liability claims, which means the team of 5 does the investigation, coordinates that, works very quickly and early on incidents to see if we have liability. We start working on it during early conversations. When we had the flood in the South County that did some property damage, we were out there within a day starting to talk to property owners to find out what damage they had. It didn't go legal at all. We kept it at the early claim stage. We get, as our county council mentioned, hundreds of claims each year. A number of them we resolve strictly at the risk management level. A number of them do become a legal tort claim. And again, we work through county council with the departments, and we're needed outside attorneys who have the expertise to help us mitigate, fight. We always have to make the assessment, is the county responsible for some of it? If it is, we're mitigating the costs and the damages, and we do all types of investigations from social media to interviews, et cetera, early on to make sure we know what our areas are. The other thing to look at is generally each year we resolve somewhere between 150 and 200 claims. Usually the liability claims will last probably the longest, maybe 5 years if it goes legal. And each year the savings that we have are significant in terms of what the initial demands are. Part of that effort also is recovery for damage done to county property. And so we, last year, brought in over $350,000 in recovery efforts for damages. And so that's on an annual basis. Next, I'd like to quickly just talk about safety and loss control. That is, 2 of our risk analysts are focused in that area. They oversee the county's overall injury prevention program and the countywide safety committee. Each department is responsible for their safety, but we serve as consultants to them. The analysts conduct quarterly safety meetings, training, educations. Last year, on average, they do over 300 to 400 ergonomic evaluations for new employees, for employees with injuries, to bring them back to work, to make recommendations to prevent those injuries. They also do over 50 different types of presentations. With COVID this last year, we've started doing voice-over PowerPoints that we can send out electronically for heat illness training and things of that sort, so we're dealing more into that area. We serve as consultants on safety issue, hazard abatement, indoor air quality issue, emergency response, and look at mitigating efforts. As we started to reopen the county, those analysts were charged with developing the county safety plan for reopening offices. We did walkthroughs with GSA. One of the things that makes risk management effective is the collaboration effort that the county departments have with us. They also administer a variety of other safety regulations, such as they conduct motor vehicle accident reviews, the drug and alcohol testing required by DOT, the DMV employee full notice program, and the defibrillator program that we have, making sure we're in compliance with all those regulations. The last 2 areas I want to talk about is our team of 6 that work in workers' compensation and disability management. Our workers' compensation, we have the responsibility of overseeing Corvell, which is our third-party claims administrator. On average, we have over 360 new claims each year filed. We work at resolving those as quickly as possible, but workers' comp is a very long process. We are able to resolve over 300 every year, but realizing a lot of those may be back from 2013, 2015, et cetera. We work very closely with the disability management team to see if we can get our injured workers back to work, modified duty, essential, we've just recently updated all of the essential job functions to have a much more detailed, and trying to work with the doctors to identify what can they do. How can we get them back to work? Because we know the sooner they're back at work and can stay a part of the workforce, the injuries resolve better, more successfully. In terms of the disability management program, On average, we have over 300 to 350 open disability cases. Those are both industrial and non-industrial. They come to any leave of absence, medical leave of absence comes to risk management at the point they've exhausted their protective leaves of 12 weeks of FEHA or in California Family Medical. This past year, we had over 113 interactive process meetings. That has changed in the spring. We now do them either telephonically or via Zoom. We have found those to be very effective. Those meetings are set to explore alternatives to bring somebody back to work. What is it that they're able to do? We have one-handed keyboards for people who can't use one hand. We use voice-activated computer programs, different ways to looking at how can they perform the essential functions with or without accommodations. What we've really focused on is looking at what we consider long-term medical leaves of absences, which would be anywhere over 6 months to a year or more. And this year we've resolved 74 of them, and so we've successfully brought them back. So it's this group that works tirelessly to protect our employees, our property, and our financial resources. And I'll turn it back over to County Council.
Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those, or any of my staff will be here to answer any specific questions.
Any questions or comments from board members? I just would say thank you for the presentation. That's very enlightening. I think it's good to come forward and tell your story. I know that County Council is not very exposed to the public, but great for you to come out here and really talk about all the different functions that are within your department. It's educational for the board and also for the public, and you know, gives them a better understanding as to what you do and why you do it. So thank you for sharing with us this morning. Really appreciate it. Anything else? Okay, if not, we will move on and take up item 27. Board members may make a referral to staff to have a matter of business considered for a future agenda. Are there any such requests here today? Seeing none, I will look over to County Council. Do we have need for closed session?
Yes, we do have need for closed session. Item C is off calendar, and we will hear the balance of the items in closed session.
Okay, and I believe Supervisor Strickland has a disclosure that she needs to make.
Item G. It's G.
G. Sorry, I didn't print it and bring it for you.
I have a financial conflict of interest under Government Code Section 87100 regarding closed session item G. I will not attend the closed session for item G and will not obtain or review any non-public information regarding the governmental decision. The clerk is requested to make this announcement part of the official public record of today's meeting. Thank you.
All right, anything further? If not, we will now adjourn this board meeting and go into closed session. Council, I believe we're going to stay in the chambers for this closed session. Thank you for attending.